Good evening and welcome to the Whiskey Lover Society with me, Gert Retief. Tonight, all about the Cheapskate series, the series where I use samples, and of course, not always possible for me to buy a full bottle of whiskey, getting a little bit expensive. 350 reviews in the last year and a half. So you can imagine it does cost a lot of money to buy a full bottle of whiskey every time for a review. And of course, I really don't have the time to sit and drink the whole bottle. So I get a huge pile up of whiskey over here, over here, over there. So it's almost full bottles of whiskey standing all over the place. So it makes it a little bit easier for me to buy a sample. And I can just show you the sample bottle that you get. It's 5 centiliters or 50 milliliters, quite reasonably priced. So sometimes it is a little bit easier to buy a sample, and I've got a fantastic online store that I could buy this one. I think I paid about €4.50 for the sample. And of course, if you want to try it before you buy it, absolutely fantastic way of making sure that you like the whiskey before you spend your money on it. So this one will cost you around €35 for a bottle. So not an overly expensive one. It is 12 years old. It is a single malt whiskey. It is from Deveron. This bottle is the, it is the second edition, if I got it correctly. This is after 2015 series that they brought out. Apparently it used to be called Deveron. Now it is just called Deveron. Nice green frosted bottle. I do like the bottle itself. But 40% ABV, €35. Probably chill filtered to death, and of course probably some color added. Not sure about it. As you know, I don't like to go digging too much into the whiskey before I do the review. I don't want to taint my opinion on it, and I don't really want to get nosing and tasting notes from other YouTubers or some other bloggers that tell me that is fantastic, and I never seem to quite align with some of the reviews. So sometimes I think maybe it's my taste buds that are gone, or now that I think about it, maybe some of their taste buds is also different. But I also realize that nobody tastes things the same way. We all have a memory bank that you're going to have to go identify something. And so it's okay if you don't get all the notes that I do get, or maybe you get way more notes that I do get. So bear that in mind when you also taste it, or maybe take a glass of the Deveron 12-year-old and we taste it together, and let's see if we can match up some of the tasting and nosing notes. So on this Deveron 12-year-old single malt, 40% ABV on the nose. Had real spice-sidey notes coming out. So it's green apple, or maybe even a red apple. It's a lovely sweetness to it, and it's like apple cider. Nice fresh apple cider, ice cold apple cider. There's a little bit of a furniture polish in it, but it's just behind the apple cider. And then I get a little bit of a woody note, a little bit of a baking spices, a little bit of a cinnamon. That is sweet. And every time that I go back, it just gets a little bit sweeter. Reminds me also a little bit of a baked apple with a little bit of sugar on top. But as you can see, it's a lot of apple notes in it. Really nice. It's inviting. It feels like summer in a glass for me. And a hint of that oak in the back. But not a bitter oak. just a nice inviting oak. On the taste, the sweetness is there, but it feels like it's less sweet on the taste than on the nose. You get a little bit of a butterscotchy note. You still get that apple cider aftertaste in it. You get that sweetness. You get a little bit of vanilla. And as on the nose, I also get that woody note. A little bit of an oak woody note. Oh, and it's now getting a little bit perfumey on the nose as well. Let me just give it one more try. 40%. You don't get a lot of the alcohol. It only gives you a little bit of a warm mouthfeel to it and a little bit of a warmth going down the throat. There's a sweetness. That apple cider is definitely still on the taste. A little bit of a toffee note also appearing. No oak tannins, no bitter notes on the second sip. Just give it one more try. And you might have noticed I take small sips, even at 40%. For me, I get way more flavor out of the whiskey if I take a smaller sip and then just move it around in the mouth so that the taste buds are not overwhelmed with the alcohol. Now, I've seen some of the YouTubers, they take a glass like this, take a huge sip, swish it around like it's nobody's business, and then they give you the notes. Now, good for them if they can handle that. I cannot do that. Especially when you get 46% and higher ABV. For me, it just overwhelms the palate. It just starts burning everything, and you lose so much. Well, anyway, I lose so much of the flavors because of that alcohol burn, that alcohol heat. It's too much for my mouth, and I lose a lot of the nice tasting notes. So for me, always when I do a tasting, very small sips, go back a couple of times, and of course you can write down every time what you do find in it. So for me, and maybe for you as well, the smaller the sips, for me the better tasting notes that I can get out of it. One of my subscribers also told me this morning that he loved the idea of adding water to it, and I completely agree with that. I do like high ABV. Some of the whiskies that I do add water, not always the best idea. That's, I think, where that drop idea is perfect. 2-3 drops, taste, 2-3 drops, taste, and then decide when it's perfect. I've made a couple of mistakes in my life where I add a little bit too much water, and of course that ruined it. So be careful with the water, but anything over 46%, I think always a good idea to add a couple of drops just to experience something new. If you don't like it, you're not wasting a lot of whiskey, but experiment, make sure that you don't add too much water, maybe ensure adding water not to ruin your palate on a whiskey. So I'm sounding a little bit like Ralphie giving a sermon or a little bit of a rant. But anyway, on the Deveron, I also have the 18-year-old, and of course that will be the next review, and I will then make a little bit of a comparison to see which one I would prefer to buy. Taking cost, of course, out of the equation. 18 or 12, most people will say, idiot, you're going to go for the 18. And I found it's not always the case for me. I've had a couple of whiskies that I compare a 10-year-old, and the last one was a 15, between a 10 and a 15, and the 10-year-old one every time. And of course, I'm talking about the Glencadam 10-year-old. I just love it. A lot like this, that lightness. A little bit of a cherry note also appearing now. So definitely something that I would recommend. Have you tried it? Not breaking the bank on this one. Maybe not so cheap. I think average price is about 35 euros. But it is definitely a little bit of a fantastic daily sipper. And of course, definitely going to buy a bottle of this one and add it to the collection. Maybe not opening it now, giving it time for the retirement, and then spend my evenings on the veranda overlooking life. So thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. I thank you for all the subscribers. And also remember, we have a Patreon account. 100% of that money will go towards children in South Africa. I have 2 Patreons, which I'm very proud of. And if you don't have money, of course, like and subscribe, and we will get to the 1,000, and all the ad revenue for this channel will also go towards children in South Africa. So see you next time. Cheers.